Learning to play an instrument such as the guitar requires a lot of time spent on practice. There are many different playing styles, and mastering one type may be the most efficient method of study to be able to play types of songs that someone wants to play, or to allow for the involvement of other musicians. Two common types of guitar player are lead guitarists, who specialise in playing individual notes, and rhythm guitarists, who specialise in accompanying lead players or singers. Although they are specialists at the types of playing that they perform, a good knowledge of the way a guitar works and the way that music is represented helps musicians to improve their playing ability and to create works that others can perform.
The acoustic guitar has a hollow body that is used as a resonant cavity for the sound. The cheapest of these is a classical or Spanish guitar. An electric guitar has transducers called pickups placed next to the strings, which produce an electrical alternating current whenever the strings are in motion. It plugs into an amplifier, which controls the volume and several other properties of the sound that is produced. Certain electric guitars have switches to control which of the pickups are used to send signals to the amplifier. The pickups which are used may be better suited to certain styles of playing. The guitar is a 6-stringed instrument that can play 38 notes from E2, 82.407 Hz, to at least E5, 659.26 Hz. A musical staff featuring a clef is used to represent the frequency of tones which are played for all musical instruments. The treble clef, or G clef, is used to mark the position of G4, 392 Hz, and the bass clef, or F clef, is used to mark the position of F3, 174.61 Hz. Music which is written for the guitar is typically engraved using a treble clef 1 octave lower, marking the position of G3, 196 Hz. This is so that the amount of lines which need to be drawn above and below the staff to incorporate the range of the instrument will be symmetrically manageable to the musician reader. A note may be played by plucking a string without any modification. Alternatively, a finger may be used to press the string into the fingerboard such that the string is in contact with a fret before plucking the string with the other hand. If there is an unusual buzzing or muted sound heard from the guitar, it is possible that the hand isn't in a correct position to play the note, or that the guitar is faulty. The volume of the note may be altered by plucking the string closer to the fret or further away. There are easily accessible 72 positions that notes may be played on the guitar, so there is a duplication of notes on other strings. The majority of the guitar's notes are played with the hand in first position, closest to the headstock of the guitar. The strings are typically tuned to the frequencies E2, 82.407 Hz, A2, 110 Hz, D3, 146.83 Hz, G3, 196 Hz, B3, 246.94 Hz, and E4, 329.63 Hz. Tuning is achieved by turning the machine heads on the headstock of the guitar, either by tightening or loosening the strings. They can be tuned to an external fixed pitch, such as the sound a pitch pipe makes, or by using an electronic keyboard. Pitch pipes contain reeds of the appropriate length which vibrate when blown and match the sound expected from the different strings. An electronic tuner is used to ensure that the strings are playing the correct note. Pressing a string against a fret effectively shortens the string and increases the frequency that the string vibrates at. Pressing the string into the 12th fret halves the length of the string and doubles its frequency, an increase of 1 octave. Strings can also be tuned with reference to other strings on the same instrument. The fifth fret of a string may be used to tune the next highest frequency string by plucking both strings at the same time and listening to ensure that there isn't any modulation of volume from the strings. The only exception to this rule is the string G3, which must have its fourth fret pressed to tune the B3 string. This method of tuning relies on the assumption that the lowest string is in tune. When starting out playing the guitar, the fingers need to be accustomed to pressing the strings, and after a period of time the fingertips will harden so that the playing action doesn't hurt as much. The other hand may use a plectrum to pluck the notes, but certain styles of guitar playing, such as fingerstyle, uses the fingernails to pluck the strings. For this reason, the maintenance of the fingernails is required to achieve the appropriate playing style. The fingers which press the strings into the frets need the nails cut short so that it is the tips of the fingers which are in contact with the fingerboard. The fingers which pluck the strings need to be filed so that the edges of the fingernails don't get caught on the strings, and they shouldn't be too long or risk breaking or interfering with other strings. The representation of notes in music for lead guitar playing can be on a staff, with the position and type of note represented by variations of circles that fit between or sit on ledger lines. The duration of a note depends on the opacity of the circle and the extension of lines above and below these circles. Typically, circles drawn below the middle B of the ledger lines have their extension lines drawn upwards at the right-hand side of the circle, and circles drawn around the middle B have their extension lines drawn downwards and on the left-hand side of the circle, but this is not always the case, such as when groups of notes bound together by beams are engraved on the staff. The staff is further divided into subdivisions called bars or measures, into which represent a period of time as specified by the time signature, a set of numbers describing the number of beats per bar and the type of circle that represents a beat in that piece of music. Another method of representing guitar music is known as tablature, which specifies the notes which must be played and the strings that they must be played on, indicating the number of the fret to be pressed. Tabs are displayed as flipped images of the strings which need to be played, so the bottom string of the guitar needs to be played when a number is specified on the top line of the tablature. Normal tablature does not contain time information, and so is used to accompany a musical staff that does contain this information. If it must be used on its own, certain coding systems represent this timing information by adding extension lines from the numbers. Guitar textbooks typically start by introducing a few notes and playing combinations of these notes in various rhythms until the student becomes familiar with them. New notes are added until the majority of the notes in first position are able to be played. They concentrate on notes without accidentals, thus neglecting those notes known as sharps or flats that do not appear on the C major scale. These are introduced later on in the practice when other musical scales are introduced. Because music has been developed in various different cultures around the world on various different instruments, it is found that not all of the standard notes that are used today are represented in the music of that culture. In order to play a song in the style of that culture, one needs to ensure that certain notes aren't used and that the difference between one note and the next highest conforms to a pattern that is repeated on each octave. The major scale in C is an example of a scale that doesn't have any accidental notes, whereas if the scale were to start on the next note up, a number of accidentals are added to the scale, and they are conveniently drawn on the key signature at the start of the staff after the clef. Besides playing individual notes, combinations of notes may be played by striking several notes at the same time using many strings. Rhythm guitarists recognize these combinations of notes as chords, and they are constructed on the basis that the combinations sound good being played simultaneously. A number of simple chords may be played in first position, but as playing ability becomes more advanced, chords may be played further down the neck using bar chords. A bar chord consists of the index finger holding down most of the strings at a certain fret, and added to this, one of the chords that is played in the first position. This effectively transposes each of the notes in the chord a certain degree higher depending on the position of the index finger on the fingerboard. The two most common bass chords for the bar chord are the E chord and the A chord. The A-based bar chords are much more difficult to practice because they require the annular finger to bend into such a position that it doesn't touch the high E string. A device called a capo can be fitted to the guitar at a particular fret to allow for playing easier in a different key. It, however, does little to help achieve mastery of the instrument. Chords are typically represented as combinations of letters and numbers above the musical staff to act as an accompaniment to the melody, which may be played simultaneously on another instrument. They are typically used to add a rhythm to a melody, and so a combination of down strums and up strums on various beats of the bar can be used as this rhythm. Other techniques include playing the lowest bass note on one of the beats and the rest of the chord in subsequent strums, or playing notes of the chords individually in a certain order. Chords may also be represented by drawing several notes on the musical staff at the same position within the bar, or as combinations of numbers on tablature. It is very useful for guitarists to learn to read music in order to improve their guitar knowledge.
The guitar is a very popular musical instrument to learn, and although it has the ability to play less individual notes than an instrument such as the piano, the sound that is expressed when playing various techniques, in combination with the portability of the instrument, have allowed it to maintain its popularity in the face of competition from other instruments. Although it takes time to master the guitar, finding appropriate learning material for the type of guitar playing that one wishes to achieve is essential. Much of this learning material may be found from various different sources and should be compiled for use in a regular playing schedule.